Our story begins with Ran, a sweet, smart girl with a good heart. But life has her stuck in a miserable job. Her boss forces her to wear ridiculous costumes to hand out chocolates to strangers for Valentine's Day, making her look like a fool. Since it's Valentine's, she texts her boyfriend, asking if he's free to celebrate like normal couples. But he coldly replies, "I'm busy. I can't even stand myself right now." Then he tells her not to send another message or he'll block her and free humanity from their relationship. Ran hangs up, curses the day she met him, and things get worse. Her heartless boss starts yelling at her, too. He's the kind of guy who sells expired products to kids. When Ran tries to warn one of the children, he snaps at her. "Mind your own business. Let your conscience pay your bills." She responds, "Good. Now I'm finally free from looking at your disgusting face." She collects her remaining salary and leaves the store, but her day is far from over. Later, she gets hit with another shock. She catches her so-called boyfriend at a cafe with another woman. She storms over, scolds him in front of everyone, and says, "So, this is the work you were busy with, you jerk, and you're even paying for her food. But when you were with me, you always acted broke." She thinks public humiliation isn't enough. So, she grabs a glass of water and splashes it in his face. Still not satisfied, she grabs another glass and does it again. The other women at the cafe, feeling like they've all been betrayed too, line up and start throwing water in his face one by one. Afterward, Ran goes to her friend who cheers her up. "You're way too good for him. You're gorgeous, smart, and he's trash. Forget him." To lift her mood, her friend gives her a free voucher for a 5-star hotel room. Ran heads there, drinks way too much, sings and dances so loudly that the hotel guests complain. The hotel manager, Shurao, personally goes to her room to ask her to keep it down. But because she's drunk and not in her senses, she drags him into her room, holds on to him, and refuses to let go. He tries to pull away, but she imagines he's her ex and hits him on the head until he passes out. They both fall asleep, but when Ran wakes up and sees a strange man in her room, she screams in terror. He wakes up, too, and shouts back, "Are you crazy? You're the one who dragged me in here and knocked me out." Ignoring his words, she kicks him out of the room just like she pulled him in. Later at checkout, Ran tries to pay with the card her friend gave her, but the receptionist tells her, "Your room charges are covered, but you still need to pay extra for raiding the mini bar." Ran vents her anger by leaving a terrible online review of the hotel. The next day, Shurao, the hotel manager, attends a major conference where all the city's top hotels celebrate record-breaking profits, all thanks to him. But suddenly, Ran's negative review appears on the big screen. It's the first bad review the hotel has had in years, and everyone is shocked. Shurao quickly saves the moment by saying, "We actually needed this feedback. Our hotel has been so perfect for so long. We forgot how to improve." After the event, Xiao decides to meet Ran in person. He calls the contact information from the hotel's records, but realizes it belongs to her friend. He tracks her down to a film set where she's working on a horror movie. When Ran hears he's coming, she decides to prank him. She throws him a fake severed head. Shurao screams, runs to his car, and calls Ran's friend again, begging for her home address. The friend tells him it's Ran's birthday, so if he wants to apologize, he should bring a gift. Shurao listens, buys a present, and goes to her house. Ran refuses to let him in, but he pushes the door open anyway. She assumes he's only there to make her delete the bad review, but he surprises her. "No, leave the review. I want you to come back to the hotel, stay for 3 days, and point out every flaw you find. Then before you leave, write a review in your own words, but honest and from the heart." To convince her, he offers $200 per day. Ran instantly says, "Why don't we make it a week? I'll give you a 10-star review." He laughs. "Nope, just 3 days. Deal starts tomorrow." The next day, a luxury car picks her up from her house and takes her to the hotel. Xiao makes her sign a contract, but she tweaks the terms, changes the stay to 1 week instead of 3 days, and threatens, "If you don't agree, I'll post an even worse review." Shirao has no choice but to accept. That night, the event organizer tells her to attend a private music performance to give feedback before they make it part of the hotel's regular entertainment. She goes, but the music is so boring. She falls asleep during the show. Zio, however, loves it and gives the green light. Ran jokes, if you're going to play this kind of music, at least give guests pillows so they can nap comfortably. Shirao loves the suggestion and decides to actually implement it, even though she was being sarcastic. Later, back in her room, a hotel maid comes to clean, but suddenly starts crying. Ran asks what's wrong. The maid says she bought some skincare products for her mom's birthday, but they caused a bad allergic reaction. When she complained to the company, they rudely blamed her and refused to refund her money. Ran comforts her and comes up with a plan. On her way downstairs, she overhears other hotel staff gossiping about her, mocking her for not being high-class enough to stay at their hotel. Pretending she didn't hear, Ran approaches one of the staff members, asks for the same skincare product, and applies it directly onto the girl who insulted her. They wait until her face turns red, take photos, and post a bad review of the product. A short while later, the company calls the maid, apologizes, and gives her compensation just to remove the bad review. Ran feels proud, like she's done something truly meaningful. But just as she's heading back to her room, she notices an elderly janitor struggling to push a heavy cart, while a rich, snobby woman refuses to help. As the arrogant woman enters the elevator, Ran follows her and starts arguing. Ran gives her a piece of her mind, leaving the woman speechless. Then Ran helps the elderly janitor push his cart and even apologizes for the scene. Later, Ran leaves the hotel to visit her grandmother in the hospital. She spends some time with her while Shirao returns to his favorite childhood restaurant, eating the same dish his mom used to make him, so different from the fancy hotel food he's used to now. Soon after, Shirao meets up with Ran again and invites her to a special event at the hotel organized by the management. But Ran's not in the mood for parties, so she refuses. Shirao gets annoyed and warns her not to disturb the guests again or kick employees out of elevators like last time. They argue and Ran calls him fake and arrogant, saying no one at the hotel actually likes him because of his attitude. But Shirao couldn't care less about her words. That night, even after she returns to her room, Shirao calls her in the middle of the night asking for feedback about what new things the hotel could offer guests. She suggests adding puzzles or games in the rooms to keep people entertained. But when Xiao keeps talking endlessly, Ran just hangs up and goes back to sleep. The next morning, she heads down for breakfast and notices an elderly guest begging an employee to help him buy his heart medication. The staff member refuses, explaining they're not allowed to bring medicine into the hotel for guests. Ran gets emotional, remembering how her own father died from a heart attack because he didn't get his medicine in time. Without thinking twice, she runs to the pharmacy to buy the medicine for the old man. Shirao watches her rush out, curious about what she's doing, but he's busy meeting an important guest, the manager of a rival hotel. Meanwhile, Ran returns with the medicine, gives it to the elderly man, and makes sure he's okay before leaving quietly. At the same time, a new guest arrives at the hotel, a tall, handsome man named Lin. He catches everyone's attention because, unlike other rich guests, he treats the staff kindly and naturally. When Lin enters his room, he notices the puzzle game placed there and starts playing it immediately. Ran also finds a puzzle in her room and assumes Xiao implemented her idea. She goes to ask him about it, but Xiao says, "It's not a bad idea, but I wasn't the one who sent it to your room." They start chatting about ideas for the hotel, but when they finish and try to leave the storage room, they discover the door is stuck. Shirao has left his phone in his office, so there's no way to call for help. Ran shrugs it off, lays a blanket on the floor, and decides to sleep since they might be stuck for a while. Shirao lies down beside her and ends up falling asleep, too. The next morning, the hotel staff find them sleeping next to each other. Rumors explode. Some say they're secretly married. Others think Shirao must have a twin brother because they can't believe what they're seeing. Both Ran and Shirao are completely embarrassed and can't look anyone in the eye. Later, Ran goes to a job interview and gets accepted, but she feels uncomfortable when the manager asks her to pay a hiring tax. When she asks what that means, he says, "You'll pay for water, electricity, and part of the salaries of the staff who welcomed you. Everything has a price here." Ran throws the paperwork in his face and leaves. At the same time, Ning, the hotel's female manager, has a business meeting with Lin. He wants to finalize a deal with her hotel, but they clash over some business details. She tells him to make his decision and let her know. Lin returns to the hotel and the first person he sees is Ran. He surprises her with a big hug, leaving the hotel receptionist stunned. She thought Lin was greeting her, not Ran. Turns out Lin and Ran have known each other for a long time, but they haven't seen each other in ages. They decide to attend the hotel party together. At the party, Lin arrives before Ran. Two girls try to flirt with him, but he ignores them and goes straight to Ran. The girls get jealous and start harassing Ran. In the heat of the moment, Ran accidentally spills a plate of cake on one of them. "Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to," she says. But the situation escalates quickly. The girls start a catfight, pulling each other's hair. One of them grabs a glass of juice to throw in Ran's face, but all the hotel staff protect Ran and hide the cups. Still, the girl manages to grab one and throws it, but it lands right on Xiao. Ran quickly tries to clean his face with a tissue, only to realize he's wearing makeup to hide his dark circles, making him look like a panda. Someone snaps a photo, posts it online, and the internet starts mocking him. Ran tries to apologize, but Shirao won't listen. He tells her she's ruined the event, embarrassed him, and broken hotel rules too many times. He decides she's no longer fit to work with him and cancels her contract. Ran is devastated. She leaves the hotel and goes back home, but Xiao feels guilty. Realizing maybe he went too far, he decides to visit her and make things right. On his way, he sees her crossing the street just as a car almost hits her. Before he can help, Lin steps in, pulls her away and takes her to a restaurant. At the restaurant, Ran vents to Lin about how messed up her life is and how she can't find a decent job. When Lin offers to help, she politely refuses, saying she doesn't like favors from friends or connections. The next day, the hotel is in chaos without Ran. She was the one who always fixed problems, and now no one knows what to do. Meanwhile, Shirao has an important meeting with the company YT to convince them to host their conferences at his hotel. To his surprise, the representative is Lin, the same guy he saw with Ran yesterday. Shirao feels a bit jealous, but tries not to show it. He starts explaining all the benefits of the hotel, but Lin interrupts him and says, "I'll sign the deal, but only if you rehire Ran. I'll personally cover her salary for the next 3 years. Shirao refuses. She can't be part of this deal. Besides, she's no longer useful and her contract with us is over. The meeting ends without an agreement, and Shirao tells Lin to let him know quickly because other companies are waiting to sign. Back at his office, Shirao can't stop thinking about Ran. He tries to distract himself, but when he goes down to the lobby to ask for guest feedback, the elderly man she helped says, "Thank your employee, the one who saved my life by getting me my heart medicine." Shirao realizes how much Ran actually did for the hotel and starts feeling worse. Meanwhile, Ran struggles to find another job, but finally lands a gig at a juice stand, handing out samples to people on the street. Her new boss keeps making her uncomfortable, getting too close to her. Shirao sees her working and secretly buys out all her juice just to help her and pays for everything himself. When Ran notices what he's done, she yells at Shirao, telling him to leave and stop interfering with her work. But later that night, he returns to the juice shop and talks to her again. This time, he's sincere. He openly asks her to come back to work because he genuinely needs her. He admits he was wrong and finally understands why she did what she did. But Ran's pride won't let her forgive him so easily. Her heart still hurts and she refuses to return to her job. While they're talking, the shop manager tries to get close to her again, but this time right in front of Shirao. Xiao loses his temper, punches the manager and pulls Ran out of the shop by force. She gets angry at him for dragging her away, but she still hops on the bus to go home. To her surprise, she finds Yao waiting for her outside with a huge apology sign in his hands. He calls her name and apologizes in front of everyone. Ran can't help but smile. Her heart melts and she forgives him on the spot. Later, she calls Lin to tell him she's going back to work at the hotel. But unlike her, Lin isn't exactly happy. He had just made a deal with manager Ning, agreeing to sign a contract in exchange for Ran working at Ning's hotel, not returning to Shurao. Ran decides to return to the hotel anyway. But this time, she asks to work as part of the service staff to get closer to the guests and better understand their needs. Her first problem arises when a drunk guest enters the hotel completely out of control. He starts fighting with everyone and threatens to kill himself because his wife cheated on him. No one knows how to calm him down, but Ran steps in and says, "Leave this to me." She pretends she's in the same situation, abandoned by her husband with kids to take care of. The man feels sorry for her, hands her the bottle, and they drink together. Ran jokingly says, "Come on, let's jump together." But the man suddenly snaps out of it. "Are you crazy? I don't want to jump anymore." He tries to leave the room, but Xiao arrives and sees Ran drinking with the guest. He scolds her, saying this kind of behavior is forbidden. He helps escort the man out, then takes Ran to her new room, which turns out to be bigger than her entire apartment. While she's happy and exploring the room, she cuts her finger. Shurao panics and quickly bandages it for her. The next morning, Ran wakes up to a call from her supervisor telling her Shurao has arranged an important training for her, and if she's late, they'll deduct her whole month's salary. She rushes to the training where she learns how to serve guests at a 5-star hotel, clean rooms properly, and provide world-class service. She practices everything she learns directly on Shurao, using him as a training model. She's not terrible at it, but Shurao still gives her some tips to improve. Later, she studies basic English and French phrases with her friend Yu to prepare for dealing with foreign guests. But no matter how hard she tries, she can't memorize a single sentence. Yu teaches her the most important rule: smile. A genuine smile is key, but Ran's smile is awkward and ends up scaring people. Bad luck follows when she's assigned to assist a foreign guest and show him around the hotel. The guest keeps talking, but Ran only knows how to say yes and no. When he asks her to go out with him, she doesn't understand and says, "Okay." Shurao overhears and steps in quickly. He tells the man she's already in a relationship, scaring him off. Then Shurao grabs Ran by the neck of her uniform and drags her back to the filthy room she was supposed to clean, a room full of dust and hair. "Clean it again and stay away from the guests, especially foreigners, before you embarrass us further." After finishing her work, Ran meets her friend and complains about how tough the day was and how strict Shurao had been. Her friend advises her, "If you want him to treat you better, get closer to him." Ran thinks about this advice and decides to follow it. The next day, Shurao asks her to attend an event at manager Ning's hotel and secretly take photos of everything for him without being noticed. He gives her a stunning dress to wear. And when she arrives at the party, she starts sending Shurao dozens of messages about random things like, "The food is good. The decorations are nice." Shurao gets fed up and tells her just send photos. No commentary. Ran snaps tons of pictures, but most of them are useless. Shurao calls her to explain what he really needs her to focus on. But as soon as she answers the phone, he hears her screaming and panics. He rushes over, thinking something terrible happened, but it turns out Ran was just overly excited because they were offering half-price products at the party. She was fighting to grab the deals. After stuffing her bag with freebies, she bumps into Lin, who was also invited by Ning. Shurao arrives, sees that Ran is fine, and shakes her out of panic, asking, "Are you okay?" But Ran brushes him off, saying, "They've got amazing contests inside. I'm going back in before I miss out." At the event, they announce a couples competition. Ran grabs Lin and signs up with him. Xiao, feeling jealous, storms onto the stage and grabs Ran's hand, telling Lin to back off, but Lin refuses, and both of them end up holding Ran's hands, refusing to let go. To make things worse, manager Ning joins in too. She wants to partner with Shurao, but he refuses. He threatens Ran, "If you don't pair with me, I'll dock a month's pay." So Ran ditches Lin and sides with Shurao. The game is simple. The first person to land a hit on their opponent wins. Shurao faces off against Lin first, both blindfolded. Shurao is faster and hits Lin, making Ning tease Lin for being too slow. Then it's Ning's turn to fight Ran. Before Ran can even move, Ning knocks her down in one hit, shocking Ran. The match ends in a tie, and both sides decide to stop this childish competition and have dinner together like civilized people. But even at the dinner table, Shurao and Lin keep exchanging competitive glances. During dinner, Shurao starts sweating and his makeup begins to melt, revealing his dark circles again. Ran notices and secretly tries to warn him, but he doesn't get it. So she draws a little panda on a napkin to hint at his face. Xiao finally understands, hides his face, and Ran makes an excuse to leave with him to fix his makeup in the car. Since they have time off, they decide to hang out. They get on a bus, listen to music together, and go for a walk. But Ran's feet start to hurt from her high heels, so she takes them off and sits on the ground. Xiao picks her up, places her on a luggage cart, and pushes her around himself. The next day at work, Ran hears rumors about a ghost appearing at a certain time in the hotel, supposedly a spirit that kidnaps workers. Ran laughs it off, saying, "The only thing you should fear is an empty wallet." But just then, Z calls her, complaining about strange noises coming from the next room. When a staff member checks, the room is empty, but they see the terrifying shadow of a little girl with long hair covering her face. The employee panics, takes a leave of absence, and refuses to work. Sha later tells Ran she needs to improve her language skills because important foreign guests are coming. To motivate her, he even raises her salary. Ran gets so excited she jumps on his back, making it impossible for him to walk. Afterward, Shurao gathers the whole staff and announces there's no ghost. Anyone spreading rumors will be fired. Ran goes to Lin's room because he specifically asks for her. When she arrives, she finds he's prepared a romantic dinner. Candles, food, the whole mood is set. He tells her he wants to talk about something important, but she doesn't care much about the conversation. She just dives into the food, completely distracted, ignoring everything else. Meanwhile, when Shurao finds out she's with Lin, he storms in, grabs her by the hand, and pulls her out, using the excuse that staff aren't allowed to spend personal time with hotel guests. Later, Shurao meets with manager Ning because he wants to discuss an important business deal. Ning, who has a crush on Xiao, mistakenly thinks he's about to confess his love for her. At the same time, Lin goes to see Ran again. He also wants to confess his feelings for her, but both of them get a shock. Shurao just wants to close a business deal with Ning, and Ran rejects Lin, telling him, "You're like a brother to me." Later, Ning takes the elevator in tears, but then realizes the hotel ghost everyone has been talking about is actually inside with her. The ghost hands her the keys she had dropped, making her scream and run out of the elevator. Ran hears the screaming and goes to check. She finds a little girl sitting quietly on the floor. Ran is the only one who doesn't see her as a ghost. The girl tells Ran, "Everyone's afraid of me, even though I haven't done anything to them." Ran feels sorry for her and takes her to buy some sweets, but the girl suddenly has a severe allergic reaction. Ran panics and calls an ambulance, then contacts Shurao. Shurao goes with the girl's mother to the hospital. Meanwhile, Lin and Ning are out together venting to each other about their romantic failures. At that moment, someone informs Ning that Ran was the reason the child was hospitalized. The cunning Ning decides to exploit the situation by contacting the media to ruin Ran's reputation and get her fired. When Lin finds out, he asks Ning why she's doing this. Ning replies, "You should thank me. If I were you, I'd go be with Ran right now." Taking her advice, Lin rushes to comfort Ran, who's devastated, saying, "I didn't mean to hurt the girl. I just felt sorry for her." Lin tells her, "You don't need to explain yourself to anyone. We all know you would never do that on purpose." At the hospital, Shurao is on edge, worried about the child. Meanwhile, the mother is furious, yelling at her ex-husband, the girl's father, blaming him for everything and demanding that he sue the hotel for what happened. When the doctor finally comes out and says the girl is stable, Shirao is relieved. But back at the hotel, the girl's father has already filed a lawsuit, demanding Ran be fired. The next day, Shirao goes back to the hospital with a gift, asking the mother to drop the case because Ran is innocent. But the mother throws the gift in his face and kicks him out. Ran, still worried about the girl, secretly sneaks into the hospital with Lin's help. She apologizes to the girl, who starts crying and tells Rand that her mom never has time for her because she's always busy with work. That's why she acted out. The mother overhears this conversation, realizes her mistake, and reconciles with her daughter. She also agrees to drop the lawsuit. Shirao is overjoyed because he didn't want Rand to lose her job. Back at the hotel, Shirao gathers the employees and decides to only deduct part of Rand's salary as a warning rather than fire her. Everyone is relieved, but then Rand gets a call from the hospital saying her grandmother is missing. They've been searching for her since morning. Rand panics and rushes to the hospital. Shirao joins her and together they search everywhere until they finally hear her grandmother calling her name. Rand finds her, hugs her tightly, and cries because her grandmother only remembers her name but doesn't recognize her. She pushes Rand away, thinking she's a stranger. Rand takes her back to her room, furious with the hospital staff for their negligence. She warns them, "If this happens again, I'll shut this place down." Afterward, Rand drinks heavily to cope and ends up completely drunk. Shirao carries her back to the hotel with help from the staff. Everyone sees him taking her to her room, and rumors about them being together start spreading again. The next morning, Rand's friends sit her down to tell her about the scandal from the night before. She has no memory of what happened, so they remind her, "You slapped Shirao, made him clean a room, and even forced him to crack your knuckles for you like a Moor." They advise her to apologize before she gets fired. Ran is mortified, but gathers the courage to talk to Shirao. However, Shirao acts completely normal when she apologizes, so she won't feel embarrassed. He just tells her, "Please don't drink like that again." Meanwhile, Lin is drinking with Ning, feeling heartbroken over Ran. Ning tells him, "You gave up too easily. If you want her, you need to fight for her, even if she rejects you." That night, the girls gathered together for a late-night hangout. An old man who works with them joins and shares his story. "Years ago, my wife disappeared. When I came back home after searching for her, I found my house demolished and this hotel built in its place. Shirao was the one who helped me. If it weren't for him, I'd be homeless. Since then, I've seen him like a son." Ran realizes Shirao has a kind heart. He's not as harsh as he seems. The next day, Ran decides to take a day off and go out with Lin to prove to him that she only sees him as a brother. At the same time, Ning asks Shirao to have lunch with her, and he agrees. By coincidence, they all end up at the same restaurant. Xiao sees Ran with Lin, gets annoyed, and sits at their table. He texts Ran during the meal, scolding her for using her day off just to hang out with Lin. Ran, irritated, tells him, "Mind your own business." Lin starts teasing Shirao by exposing childhood secrets. They grew up together, and Lin's father was like a second father to Shirao. Then Lin retaliates by sharing embarrassing stories about Ran, like the times she skipped school and jumped over walls. Both Ran and Shirao leave the table, embarrassed. Back at the hotel, a female guest asks Shirao to help her find something she lost in her room. But when he goes inside, she suddenly hugs him and won't let go. Ran sees this and immediately attacks, kicking the woman in the leg to separate them and even tries to pull her hair, but Xiao barely manages to stop her. He throws the guest out of the hotel. Later that night, Ran goes to Shirao's room to pick up some paperwork, but he tells her, "I cooked a lot of food and don't want to eat alone." So she stays and it turns into a romantic dinner. During the meal, Ran asks him why they've both been acting so jealous lately. Shirao tries to avoid the topic, but Ran gets annoyed and blurts out, "I love you." All of Shirao's usual pride and charisma melt away in that moment. He softly replies, "I love you too." Meanwhile, Lin is having dinner with an important businessman, talking about Shirao's hotel. It becomes clear that the businessman isn't a kind person. He's planning to take over Shirao's hotel. By coincidence, Shurao overhears Ning's voice and realizes she's at the same place as him. They end up spending the night drinking together. And as usual, the conversation turns to Shurao. Ning confesses how much she loves him and that she'd do anything to win his heart. Shurao gently advises her, "Love isn't enough anymore. You should choose someone who respects you and cares for you." But Ning drinks too much and ends up getting sick. Shurao carries her to the car, and in the moment they get a bit too close. But for him, it's just a mistake he quickly brushes off. When he takes her to her room, he playfully draws on her face while she's sleeping, then is too lazy to go home, so he crashes at her place. The next morning, Ning wakes up terrified to see him right in front of her. She asks him, "What are you doing here?" He tells her what happened the night before and laughs at her shocked expression. So she bites him in retaliation. Meanwhile, Shurao and Ran are secretly living out a love story, trying to hide their relationship from the staff to avoid gossip, but everyone notices. They've been caught more than once being affectionate. Later, Mr. Lee, Ning's father, arrives at the hotel. Turns out he's actually the owner of the hotel where Shurao works. He thinks his daughter would be a perfect match for Shurao and starts planning to arrange their marriage. Ning is thrilled about the idea. She invites Shurao to lunch with her father, and during the meal, Mr. Lee starts dropping hints about marriage. Shurao gets nervous and leaves the lunch early. Ning follows him, telling him again that she loves him and clings to him. Ran sees them together, misunderstands the situation, and gets upset. Xiao runs after Ran to explain, but she goes to visit her grandmother, who no longer recognizes her. Ran confides in her, "I'm scared of Ning. She and her father will use their power to trap Shurao and I'll lose him." Her grandmother reassures her, "Don't worry about Shurao. Take care of him. He won't leave you." Encouraged by this advice, the next time she hears someone yelling at Shurao, Ran grabs the nearest bottle, ready to defend him. But when she storms into the room, she finds it's Mr. Lee himself shouting at Shurao. She gets scolded and thrown out. As she leaves, she sees a woman walking with her daughter and is completely shocked. It's her mother. She drops the bottle in disbelief. When people ask her what's wrong, she says, "That woman is my mother." She spends the whole day feeling down and avoids talking to anyone. Her little sister, Jiao, accidentally knocks over Ran's cleaning tools, and Ran tries to speak to her calmly, offering to change her clothes and clean them herself. But Jiao insults her, calling her stupid, and raises her voice. Their mother shows up, hears the commotion, and scolds Jiao. Shurao steps in to calm everyone down, but Ran can't take it anymore and leaves. Later, her mother comes to apologize and asks for forgiveness, but Ran refuses. "I'll never forget the day you left us to marry someone else. My father died from heartbreak because of you." Her mother tries to explain, "I did it because of the debts we had," but Ran doesn't want to hear it. Shurao notices that Ran is under a lot of emotional stress, so he takes her somewhere to help her release all the negative energy she's been carrying. The next day, Mr. Lee arranges a family dinner with Shurao and Ning. He openly talks about marriage. Ran watches, hoping Shurao will reject the idea, or at least say he's in love with someone else, but he stays silent, which they all interpret as him considering it. Ran gets upset and leaves. Shurao follows her and says, "There's a lot you don't understand right now. I can't explain everything just yet. Please give me some time." At that moment, Ning texts Lin and tells him, "Ran is upset right now. This is your chance to be there for her." Shurao is also torn up about the situation. He goes to his usual restaurant and talks to the owner, who is like a father figure to him. Shurao confesses, "I'm lost. I've worked so hard to build everything I have. But I love Ran, too. I don't know what to do." Meanwhile, Ran returns to work, but she's emotionally drained. Her next task is to clean her sister's room. Because their mother favors the sister, she deliberately messes up the room, throwing water everywhere to make Ran clean until she's exhausted. But Ran sees through the game, refuses to clean, and stands up to her sister. Her sister insults her, calling her a jealous poor girl, and threatens to report her to Shurao so she can get fired. Their mother overhears this and slaps her younger daughter. She then approaches Ran again, begging for forgiveness. But Ran says, "I've lived my whole life without a mother, and I'll keep living that way. Please don't show up in front of me or my life again." The next day, they leave the hotel, but her mother leaves a letter for Ran, admitting, "I couldn't handle my failed marriage with your father or the debts. I know I'm selfish. I'm not like other mothers who sacrifice for their kids. But please love yourself and know your worth, so you don't end up like me." Ran is deeply affected by the letter, but returns to work. Then she overhears her colleagues gossiping about Bai, the woman who's been getting close to Shurao. They say Bai is on the rooftop now, threatening to jump and cause a scandal. Ran rushes up to stop her, but Bai reassures her. "I'm not going to jump." She tells Ran about a man she met at the hotel 3 years ago. He was an event organizer and they fell in love, but he disappeared. Every year since, she's come back to the hotel on the anniversary of the day they met, hoping to find him. Bai explains, "The last time you saw me hugging Shurao, it wasn't because I liked him. He just reminded me of the man I loved." Ran feels sorry for her and asks Shurao for the list of all the event organizers from 3 years ago. Though it's against hotel policy, Shurao gives her the information after she tells him Bai's story. Meanwhile, Ran's friend is at a studio recording her first song, but she doesn't like the outfit they made her wear. She feels exploited and leaves, upset and lost, unsure how to achieve her dreams. Her mother calls, scolding her for still being single, which makes her even more stressed. She collapses and is rushed to the hospital. Ran immediately goes to the hospital when she hears, but she barely has time to stay because of work. She checks that her friend is okay and returns to the hotel. That night, Shurao surprises both Ran and Bai by bringing the event organizer to meet Bai. She can't believe it. Her lover explains, "I disappeared because I became a burden and didn't want to drag you down." But she doesn't care about that anymore. They promise to be together from now on. Ran thanks Shurao for what he did. At the same time, Xiao asks Ran to visit his resort to make sure everything is running smoothly. When Lin finds out she's going, he insists on going with her. Shurao's assistant reports this to him, so Shurao decides to surprise them and head to the resort himself. Mr. Li overhears Shurao's plan and sends Ning with him, hoping she'll win Shurao over during the trip. Shurao and Ning arrive at the resort before Lin does. Ran is the one who opens the door for them at the resort and welcomes them. But Shurao doesn't let Lin get close to her at all. He even watches her room at night to make sure Lin doesn't speak to her. Shurao keeps bothering her, knocking on her door repeatedly, asking for things just to tease her. The next day, they all go out to explore the city. Both Lin and Shurao want to be next to Ran so badly that they literally fight over her, pulling her from side to side like children chasing after each other. In the middle of the square, music starts playing and Lin takes Ran to dance. Shurao gets really jealous, so he grabs Ning and starts dancing with her too. Suddenly, it starts pouring rain. Lin and Ning hide together inside a large transparent ball to stay dry, but they get stuck inside it. Meanwhile, Shurao takes Ran aside, and as they stand together, an old woman sees them and assumes they're a married couple because of how good they look together. When Shurao tells the old woman they're in a relationship, but nothing official yet, she gives them a love lock and tells them to hang it in a special place to ensure their love lasts forever. The rain finally stops, and Lin struggles to get out of the crowd with his ankle twisted. Ning helps him walk. Xiao and Ran go to hang the lock together. Later, when they return to the resort, Ran massages Lin's foot because it hurts. But when Xiao sees that, he makes her move aside and replaces her. Xiao intentionally twists Lin's ankle a bit more so he won't be able to walk properly again. At night, they all have dinner together and continue their usual bickering. So much so that they even argue over the food despite there being plenty. Lin feels exhausted and falls asleep at the table. Shurao leaves too, leaving just the girls. Ning tells Ran, "I'm jealous of you." Ran laughs and replies, "Why? You're rich and have everything. Why would you be jealous of me?" Ning says, "Because you have Shurao and Lin likes you. No one cares about me." She then covers Lin with a blanket and goes to sleep. Lin notices everything, but pretends not to. When they all return from the resort, Lin stays up alone, thinking about Ning and all the moments they've shared. His feelings become very confused. Later, Shurao and Ran visit her grandmother in the hospital, bringing her a gift. The grandmother mistakenly calls Lin Shurao, thinking he's the one who regularly visits her. Ran is thrilled when she realizes Shurao secretly cares for her grandmother and wants to thank him. First, she reconciles with her friend whom she had left alone at the hospital the last time. The next day, a once famous singer named Gao checks into their hotel. She used to be a huge star, but now no one talks about her like before. She's there for a press interview and Shurao is tasked with organizing the event carefully to avoid problems. However, a fan suddenly rushes at Gao to take a selfie, triggering the other fans to swarm her. Xiao steps in to protect her, but a large advertising board falls on his head. He's taken to the hospital. When Ran finds out, she panics and rushes to the hospital. The nurses point to a covered body and tell her that the person died from a board falling on their head. She thinks it's Shurao and starts crying uncontrollably, even reciting poetry for him. But when she turns around, she finds Shurao standing right behind her, perfectly fine. He wasn't injured. She's overwhelmed with relief and makes him promise never to scare her like that again. Afterward, she returns to the hotel to finish her work. When she goes to clean Gao's assistant room, she finds a black bag filled with cash. The assistant quickly grabs it back and rushes out. Ran follows her and secretly takes photos when she sees the assistant handing the money to a man, thanking him for causing a distraction during the press event to draw attention back to Gao. Ran confronts Gao and asks her to explain what she overheard. Gao admits they hired someone to stir up trouble during the interview so people would think she's still famous and loved by fans, just like before. But this plan damaged the hotel's reputation as people now think it was poorly managed. Ran tells Gao, "You need to confess publicly to Shurao and tell everyone the truth before the video spreads and ruins your image even more." But Gao refuses. "I can't do that. I'm tired of people forgetting me. I worked so hard to reach where I am. And in 1 second, it was all taken away from me just because I got older." Ran feels sorry for her and agrees not to post the video, but asks her to find another way to fix the situation without harming Shurao. That night, Ran's friend goes live on social media, crying as she tells her followers this will be her last live stream. "I'm giving up. I can't achieve my dream. I'll go back to my mom, get married, and at least become a mother." She sings one last time, then visits Ran to give her her guitar as a keepsake. Ran respects her decision and encourages her. "Do whatever makes you happy if that's what will give you peace." They say goodbye for what seems like the last time. But barely a minute later, Ran calls her and tells her to come back quickly. She's now famous and her dream has come true. She checks her phone and finds her live stream has gone viral. The audience loved her song. She rushes back, performs again, and this time, the crowd surrounds her, cheering her on. Meanwhile, Ning realizes how selfish she's been lately and goes to apologize to Xiao. She admits that she made a lot of mistakes, especially pushing her father into arranging a marriage between them. "I'll stay away from you now. I won't bother you anymore," she promises. At the same time, Lin meets with Ran and also apologizes for his selfishness, for always trying to interfere between her and Xiao. "The most important thing to me is your happiness, even if that means you're not with me," he says. The next day, something strange happens at the hotel. One of the guests accuses the old man who works there of drinking from his bottle and finishing it. The situation escalates and the guest gives the hotel a terrible review. Because of this, the old man is fired even though he didn't do anything wrong. Then 2 other guests complain about a bad smell in the hotel and cancel their reservation, causing another problem. All this happens in one day, and Shurao starts to suspect that someone is deliberately trying to ruin the hotel's reputation. He checks the security cameras and sees someone handing money to the guests who complained. Shurao asks his assistant to gather all the information on the man in the footage. A few hours later, the assistant tells him the guy is super rich. He owns several companies. But the strange part is his companies are funded by YT Corporation, Lin's company. Shurao immediately realizes Lin is behind this sabotage to shut down his hotel. He goes to confront him. Lin denies everything, saying, "I have nothing to do with it. I didn't do any of the things you're accusing me of." Shurao calms down and leaves. But right after that, Lin calls his father and asks, "Did you do this?" His father answers bluntly, "Yes, I did it because you're a failure. You couldn't complete the task like I told you." Because of these bad reviews, Mr. Lee returns to the hotel, and a very important meeting takes place, attended by Lin's father. During the meeting, Lin's father proposes that he take over the hotel's management and handle its development by demolishing it and building a completely new modern hotel to compete with other luxury hotels. He believes the hotel is too old and his plan would reduce staff by 90% since he intends to turn it into a smart hotel run by AI. He argues this would save money and generate huge profits in the future. Mr. Lee agrees to the idea, but Shurao is shocked by his decision. He goes to confront Mr. Lee, telling him, "This hotel is special to me. My mother was part of this place before she died. That's why I love it. I don't want it to be destroyed." Mr. Lee becomes very upset with Shurao's attitude and slaps him, saying, "Enough with your selfishness." Shurao is hurt by this and later sits with Ran, who comforts him. While they are together, they overhear a wealthy elderly man complaining about the restaurant at the hotel because everything is now operated by AI and he can't understand how to use it. The man leaves, leaving a terrible review. This gives Shurao an idea. He tells Ran they need to attend the contract signing meeting tomorrow. Meanwhile, Ning finds out what Lin's company did. So she goes to Lin, pulls his hair and beats him up. But Lin insists, "I had nothing to do with this. My father did it." She calms down and listens as he tells her, "I never wanted things to go this way. All I wanted was to buy the hotel and become a partner, not to fire people or tear it down." She tells him he still needs to fix what he did and help Shurao because his intentions weren't good from the start. But Lin refuses and says he won't get involved. At the meeting, Shurao asks Lin's father to step out because he has something to say. Mr. Lee gives him permission to speak. Shurao presents a plan showing that about 50% of their guests are over 40 years old, including many prominent families. He explains that most of these guests still struggle with smartphones, the internet, and AI. Shurao asks them to imagine if the hotel becomes fully AI-operated as Lin's father suggests. What will happen to those guests? He pleads for just 3 months to restore the hotel's reputation and prove his point. Mr. Lee agrees. Over the next 3 months, they revamp everything in the hotel. Shurao even convinces Lin to help, and Ning joins as well. They reach out to celebrities and influential people who had previously stayed at the hotel, asking them to post positive reviews. Ran asks her now famous friend to hold a special concert at the hotel. When the 3 months are up, Mr. Lee is still not fully convinced. He thinks the hotel remains outdated, and AI-driven hotels are making far more money. He plans to sign the contract with Lin's father, but delays it because he's busy. A few days later, the contract signing is scheduled again. Xiao attends, but this time, he has no solution except to beg Mr. Lee not to demolish the hotel. Lin's father tries to speak gently so Shurao doesn't get too emotional. "You're still young. You'll find a million jobs in your field. Don't be selfish. Let Mr. Lee make his decision without manipulating emotions." To appear democratic, Lin's father asks the board who agrees with his proposal. Everyone raises their hands and says, "We agree." Shurao feels completely defeated until suddenly Mr. Lee speaks up. "I refuse." Everyone is shocked. Lin is upset, asking, "How could you say no?" Mr. Lee explains, "After thinking it through, I realize there's nothing wrong with keeping the hotel as it is. It's not just about profits. This hotel holds so many memories for me. It's the first hotel I ever built. Besides, my other hotels are thriving and earning more than enough for the next 100 years. Lin's father becomes furious, calls Mr. Lee an old man who's lost his mind, and storms out of the meeting. Shurao is overjoyed. He meets with Lin, Ning, and Ran and thanks them all for standing by him through this. Later, Mr. Lee meets Shurao privately at the hotel. He reveals that he agreed not to demolish the hotel because of Ran. She had gone to him and convinced him not to focus solely on profits, telling him, "You'll regret destroying the memories attached to this place." Her words touched him, but during the conversation, he suddenly feels unwell and is rushed to the hospital. At the same time, Lin is with his father, who starts yelling at him for helping Shurao. But Lin's father becomes so angry that he also collapses and is taken to the same hospital. Meanwhile, Ning confirms her feelings toward Lin. She meets with him, subtly confesses that she loves him, but says they can't be together, and bids him farewell. Ran meets with Shurao and tells him that she was the one who convinced Mr. Li, but Mr. Li had one condition. Ran must stay away from Xiao for 2 years and go abroad for training. He'll arrange it himself so she can come back later and help the hotel. Ran agrees to this even though Xiao says, "I can't let you go." She replies, "This is my decision. 2 years isn't long and it won't affect our relationship." Shurao respects her decision and trusts her. Before she leaves, she visits her grandmother to say goodbye, promising to return soon. She cries the whole way, afraid her grandmother might die while she's gone. Afterward, Shurao drives her to her family's home. They spend the night talking, agreeing to message each other daily and share everything happening in their lives. The next day, Ran says goodbye to her friends at the hotel and waits for Shurao to take her to the airport. But his assistant shows up, saying Shurao has an important meeting and can't come. She gets in the car, furious, cursing Shurao the whole way, only to discover he's actually the driver. He couldn't stand hearing her curse at him, but had planned a surprise to take her to the airport himself. She's shocked, but happy, and he takes her to the airport where she departs. A year passes. Xiao contacts Ran every day, sends her updates, takes care of her grandmother, visits her daily, and sends Ran photos because she misses her so much. However, Ran rarely replies, and eventually stops responding altogether, leaving Shurao hurt. But soon he receives amazing news. The hotel wins the award for best hotel in the country. When Ning hears this, she comes to congratulate Shurao and Lin is with her. The big surprise is they invite Shurao to their wedding. Over the past year, they realize they truly love each other. A few days later, Shurao hears that Ran has returned to the hotel and is now a major figure in the marketing department. When he goes to see her, she walks past him without even looking at him and ignores him all day. At night, he finds her dressed in a Santa outfit. She gives him a gift box, and when he opens it, it's filled with pictures of them together. Then she steps behind a tree, changes into a wedding dress, and proposes to him. She apologizes for not talking to him this past year, explaining she worked day and night to finish her training in 1 year instead of 2 so she could come back faster. Shurao forgives her and agrees to marry her. Everyone gathers around them and celebrates their love. And that's how the series ends.